Good morning, I'm Katelyn Wells and you're tuning in to RTA News. Today I have a very special guest here with me to talk about a community that many of our viewers may not be aware of. Today we have Mason Rock here to talk about his experience as both a member and a player within the Magic the Gathering community. So Mason, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
What exactly is Magic the Gathering?
Magic the Gathering is a trading card game. So it's essentially nice little small pieces of cardboard with nicely designed pictures on them, and we use them to either collect or play a game, of course, called Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm. What's the difference then between this card game and say something else like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh?
I'd say Magic is a lot slower in some senses. Yu-Gi-Oh is more like, I'm just going to keep going, I'm going to play creatures here, going to do all this stuff, while Magic is more like, I need resources to do things, and if you don't have them, then you can't do them.
What kind of resources might you need?
Well, the main resource in Magic the Gathering is land. So you need a certain value of land in order to cast your spells and play the game. So if I, let's say, had a card that needs 3 land to play, and I only have 2, I can't play it.
Right, okay. Then how do players compile their decks?
Well, players usually look for a mechanic that they like within the game, so something that is a ruling, and they'll build a deck off of that. It's usually a 60-card deck, 4 of cards, meaning that you can have 4 of the same card in the deck, and no more. And they build their decks that way, so they'll figure out what goes well with each other, what synergizes, and they'll compile a deck that way.
How much money does, let's say the average player spend on a Magic deck?
It depends on how serious the player is. So there's many casual players who want to spend not too much, maybe like $50 to $200, maybe at the most. Mm-hmm. But there's more competitive players that'll spend anywhere between $600 to maybe even $5,000 on a deck.
Wow. So what are the different formats of decks, that a player could use or play?
I'm guessing that you're going to be talking about the deck archetypes here. So there's 4 main archetypes. There's more archetypes, but they're a lot more complex. So the main archetypes are combo, there's aggro, so that's an abbreviation for aggressive, there's a mid-range, and there's a control. So what an aggro deck is it's like I'm going to play really efficient cards that are really low cost, so I don't need as much land, and I'm going to just deal as much damage to you, finish the game as fast as I can. The mid-range deck is kind of a mixture between the control and the aggro. So it's going to be like, I'm going to kind of always push an advantage on you. I'm always going to have something to do, and you may or may not be able to deal with it. And control is like, I'm going to keep you away from having, keep you off of anything that you can have to gain an advantage. Combo, on the other hand, is more like, I'm going to keep playing things, and I'm going to get rewarded for it. So it's not so much I'm going to play creatures and deal with that. I'm just going to keep going and what is called going off. So I'm going to blow you out of the game just by playing things.
Right. What are the different game types then that a player could play?
Well, there's casual formats, mm-hmm. and there's competitive formats. Competitive formats are compiled by mainly 4 things known as standard, modern, legacy, and vintage. They're all based off of ban lists. So there's certain cards that you can't play, certain sets that you can't use. So for example, standard is the 2 most recent sets. So that would be up until a set right now called Theros. So there's Theros, Concetarkir. You can't use anything before Theros. Modern is something that goes up to a set called Cold Snap. It was printed like 2000 or something. Legacy is all the sets, but with extremely strict ban listings. So extremely strict. And vintage is pretty much everything, but there's a few banned cards and a restricted list, meaning that you can only have 1 of the certain cards in your deck.
You talk about banned cards. What could get a card banned?
Well, a general banning ruling is like if the card has really good synergy that's just unbeatable, like you can't do anything about it, or if a deck is winning a lot. For example, there's a card that was banned recently called Treasure Cruise, and it's essentially you pay 1 land and you draw 3 cards. Mm-hmm. And that's already a really good card that has already been banned in another format because it's just a reprint almost. And then there's some decks that are just really good and just win all the time. So for example, one deck got banned recently, well, 1 card from the deck got banned, and they banned it because it won 6 major events, first place, just in a row. So they were saying, okay, you know what? It's too good. We can't have this card anymore, and they banned it.
Manufacturers don't know when a card would be banned, right?
No, not all the time. Like sometimes they just don't think about it. Like they just mess up entirely. For example, they're printing a card right now, Myth Realize, that will increase the percentage win rate of the Storm deck that I mentioned to you earlier by significant amount. But sometimes they print a card and then not think about it, like, because there's almost 15,000 printed cards in Magic, right? You can't consider every single card, right? So if you actually go through all of them, it's too hard to keep track.
What would you say is the age range of the Magic player?
It can range anywhere between, I play with someone who's 50 years old. I play with someone who's 8 years old. Like, it ranges. So I'd say the average age is probably around 28 to 32, in that area.
Okay, so it's pretty inclusive for almost all ages.
Extremely inclusive. Yeah, it's easy to get into, but it's also very complex to keep your mind going, right? So I can see that it's appealing to younger ages as well as older ages.
Okay, well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have, but thank you so much, Mason.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we'll be talking about how to start your own garden on a student budget on the first day of spring. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.